of our club, chair of the District 6710 Membership Committee, recipient of the Rotarian of the Year Award, and a Paul Harris Fellow. Alice, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jean. It's my pleasure and really my great honor to introduce our guest speaker today. Over the past year, Louisville has taken center stage in the urgent call for racial and social justice. At the forefront is the Honorable Sadiqa Reynolds. In her role as the president and CEO of the Louisville Urban League, she is the chief architect of A Path Forward, a comprehensive call for systemic change that centers jobs, justice, education, health, and housing. Sadiqa's story is one of many firsts. She was the first woman to lead our urban league in its 95-year history. She served 2 years as district court judge. She was the first African-American woman to clerk for the Kentucky Supreme Court as chief law clerk for the late Chief Justice Robert Stevens. And she was the first African-American to serve as Inspector General for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Immediately before taking the reins at the Louisville Urban League, Sadiqa was chief of community building in the mayor's office, overseeing 1,500 employees. And before her public service career, she owned her own law firm, practicing, among other things, criminal and death penalty litigation and employment law. Her pro bono work on behalf of domestic violence victims and other disadvantaged citizens was recognized by the Louisville Bar Association. Her service to our community includes board leadership for Fund for the Arts, Chamber of Commerce, Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, WAVE, and WDRB. She's become a prominent speaker, interviewed by the New York Times, CNN Headline News, CBS and Fox News, the BBC, and other international news outlets. And as I'm sure you saw in her bio that was published in Sparks, she has extensive awards and recognitions, including her most recent recognition as the Kentucky's Charles W. Anderson Laureate and being named one of Louisville's CEOs of the Year. Sadiqa earned her BA in psychology from U of L, her law degree from the University of Kentucky, and she holds honorary doctorates from Spalding and Simmons College. Her 2 wonderful daughters, Sydney and Winter, are both being educated in our public schools, and Sadiqa says her goal is to leave the world better for them. So let's hear from Sadiqa Reynolds, and she'll tell us how she's making that happen.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Thank you, Alice. Thank you for that introduction. Hi, Jean. Hi, everybody. I'm reading chats now. People are saying I look too young to have done all that, and I'm agreeing. Yes, that's right. I'm only 21. I want to thank the Rotary so much. I think this is maybe my 3rd time here. I've presented to the entire Rotary just about the work of the league, and then I think there was some assistance with the strategic planning work that you all did, and I certainly want to commend you on that work. And I see Julie Johnson here, a fellow attorney who just hosted an event for us. Thanks, Julie. I'm so glad you're here because you should be like kind of tired of hearing from me. But I am very excited to be here with you all today. And as I understand it, I have a little bit of time, maybe about 20 minutes or so, to talk about the league and to talk really about the sports and learning complex. I think that's what a lot of people want to hear about. Is that right? And I'll talk about the work of the league and why that sports and learning center is so important. And I even brought slides, which I never do. So if we actually have those, does anybody have them, or am I in charge of that? It looks like it's me.
If you can get them up, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll share my screen here. Hold on.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Let's see. You never know. Okay, here we go. Share screen. All right. Which one? Which screen? And let me know if you see this screen. Can you see it? Okay, great. All right, so the Louisville Urban League won the right to develop a $53 million sports and learning complex. It is the league itself, our regular work, jobs, justice, education, health, and housing. That's what we focus on. You all know that. I've come here before and talked about that. And when I learned, though, that this 24 acres of land was going to remain in our community, unclean, unused, because another project was not able to go forward. I wanted to ensure that something wonderful happened on this land. It's 24 acres sitting at 30th Muhammad Ali on one side and Market on the other. And so if you see here, if you can see where I'm using my arrow, this is Muhammad Ali. And then beyond this facility, this is the new facility, here is Market Street. And so here I'm going to show you a before. This is actually not a really good before shot because it doesn't show just how bad it really was. So this is after we've done some work, and but before we actually finished. And so you see here, you can see the lines, West Muhammad Ali. You see the train that runs. And then actually both Cedar Street and Jefferson Street dead end right at the facility. So it's pretty close to downtown. And then again, you have Market Street here. This is the after, and after is even better than it looks here because we've got some greening happening. So it's pretty cool. We've built some trees. So these are not even the latest after shots. I'll have to get some more drone shots. And then over here on this side, you see the outdoor track. So we not only built a state-of-the-art sports and learning center, which is this facility, but we also built an outdoor track as well. And track is the anchor for obviously the outdoor, but certainly the indoor too, because this community has a very rich history around track and field. And really our young people did not have a place to show off their talent. So quite often they travel, they go out of town, but people here in the city have no idea that we're really raising Olympians in our community. And of course, indoor track season is a very short period of time. So we don't expect that we're only going to have track meets. We actually built this on a hydraulic floor, and I'll show you some pictures of that. The floor takes a few minutes to lower, and once it does, you can do any number of things on the floor. So you get, when I traveled to New York, they were having a robotics conference. This is one of 9 facilities in the country with a hydraulic floor. So this is a pretty big deal for Louisville. And we actually opened, I guess about 6 weeks ago. I don't remember the exact date. We have already hosted more than 25 states, more than 25 states and 3 countries in this facility in a pandemic. We can only have about a third of the people that can actually normally come in. So for a track meet, we'd be able to seat 4,000 spectators. So we've kept everything at about a third, but still we have entertained a significant number of guests from outside of our city and state, including a former professional athlete. Some of you all will remember Randall Cunningham from the NFL. He coaches a high jump team, and they came in and competed. They are trying to qualify for the Olympics. You will find that our facility is going to often be used for those qualifying events. We have a few people in our city who have asked us if they could use the facility on a regular basis because they need to be able to practice consistently so that they too can attempt to qualify for the Olympics. So I'm pretty excited about having those opportunities. Here is another after shot. I think this is really important because it shows, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, oh, here it goes. Because it shows what we did on the side of the building. This is 30th Street. And again, these are older pictures. This is not actually the finished model. I saw Tyler Allen on with us here at Rotary. Tyler did this wall actually. And this is a wall of heroes. And I came up with this wall because as you know, we were building this sports and learning center during not only a pandemic, oh my goodness, but also in the middle of really significant civil unrest in our city and in our community. And there were people and things that I needed to pull from in order to really be able to keep going in all of this. And so I wanted to memorialize that. And so there are folks, some of them local. You'll see here, Maddie Jones, she's a local activist in our community, very well-respected woman. Her photo is there. Ed Hamilton's photo is here. You also see Naomi Osaka, Thurgood Marshall. There are others. So we invite people to drive down 30th Street or walk down to see that. And we've also got some artwork inside the building. The same thing. To inspire community and also to acknowledge the space that this building is built in, and to recognize that we are building in a community that has long been under-invested in our community. And we needed to be able to acknowledge that, acknowledge the shoulders that we stand on. And so you have that there. We have had some pretty amazing corporate sponsors. Quite frankly, we haven't had enough, but I want to talk about and celebrate some of those who have. We will be making a big announcement. We've already made this announcement that there's a partnership with Thornton's. They have agreed to invest any profit back into the Urban League. Why would they do that? Well, the Urban League focuses on jobs, justice, education, health, and housing. We still have to do all of that work, but also now we've got to pay the bills at this facility. And so Thornton's has agreed to come in. They're opening a store. It won't be a gas station. It's just a corner store. This facility will be open beyond the hours of the actual sports center. And you'll see there people can come in and grab food. And you see here that we have outdoor ping pong tables. We have some outdoor chess games built onto our tables there. And there's 2 sets of those. You can't really see that now. These aren't the best pictures, but they're the best we had, I guess. I never looked at this. The other thing I want to talk to people about, I think it's important for the Rotary to understand how it was that we financed this project. And I won't get into the nitty gritty, but I'll get into some of it. And I think it's important for this community because there's been a little bit of confusion about this. So it's a $53 million project. We used federal new market tax credits. We used state new market tax credits. We certainly had a significant amount of philanthropy. So many of the fabulous foundations in our community stepped up to really support us and to help with this. And we also had sponsorships, and those sponsorships were tied into often to naming rights. The last $10 million that we needed though to finish this project, that need really came during the civil unrest and obviously in the pandemic. And I had to make a decision about whether or not I was going to go ahead and push through and finish this project or sort of stop, because we certainly could have declared for many reasons, right, that by an act of God, we cannot move forward with the contract and just let things go, let them linger and pick it back up when all was clear. But when is all ever really clear in a Black community, in a poor community, in the zip code with the lowest life expectancy? I could not predict when that could happen. And so I made a decision that I would attempt to get something that I don't think has been done before. A Black woman leading a civil rights organization going to banks and requesting a $10 million loan. But of course I did it and ultimately did get the loan. And so that $10 million loan, and it is a loan, and that's really important because I think we had a press conference to celebrate it and people got confused and they thought that maybe the league does not have to pay that loan back. No, we do. We've got a decent interest rate, but the money has to be paid back over a period of time. And so Republic Bank that is also a really huge supporter of the league, a consistent supporter of the Urban League, stepped up to lead the way to put these other banks together. So Republic Foundation was kind enough to invest in the sports and learning complex, but also they led the work on this, on gathering the banks for the loan. And so you see here, Republic, Stockyards, L&N, Liberty Bank, Commonwealth Bank and Trust, Limestone Bank, Central Bank, Wilson and Muir, and West Banco Bank came together to loan us portions of the money, ultimately to make available to us the $10 million. And so that's what that is. So we had nine banks. And I think what they wanted to celebrate was this idea that they had come together to do this wonderful thing, to finish this project for a community. And I think that is something that we should all celebrate. I also want to be clear that it would be wonderful if we had more sponsorships so that we could very quickly pay this loan off. And that's important for you to know, because the business model doesn't work if we have a $10 million loan. We need to get this off of us. So it was always my desire to build this debt-free, and believe me, I was on my way. I mean, we had $43 million secured, and the last 10 million, I just didn't think, I could not imagine how I could go out and ask people for money when they didn't know what tomorrow would hold in that pandemic. There were so many uncertainties. But the thing I knew for sure, that is, if the world was able to go on, that I wanted this project to be done and be a part of it. So it's like, if we all die, then okay, whatever. But if we're alive, I want this done. That's how I felt. And I'm smiling when I'm saying that, but I promise you that is honestly how I felt and how I drove through it. And I really want to be and say thank you to the corporate sponsors who stepped up in ways that I don't think I can quite communicate or articulate to you my appreciation. Norton Healthcare came in to own the naming rights for this facility for 10 years. And I think they really helped to make people take this project more seriously. And so they own the naming rights to the facility. And this is just a picture of the indoor facility. So you understand this is a phenomenal, I mean, this is a state-of-the-art facility, and this track is hydraulic, it'll lower, like I said. Humana stepped up to own the naming rights for the outdoor track and field. And also we created the Humana Hub. And so you only see one side of the room here, but there's another side. So this is a great rental space for us if anybody would like to use that for board meetings or anything like that. Again, Humana stepped up in a big way at a time when we really needed cash. They infused it into this project and we were able to keep going. And that was important because we were able to create more than 300 jobs in the creation of this. And so it was important for me that I did not have to lay people off during the pandemic. It certainly, I was in touch with the governor's office trying to figure out if they were going to pull the plug on construction. And there was a lot of angst during this period. And at some point I'll be able to really talk about all that we went through. But long story short, we made it through. And Kindred stepped up to purchase the naming rights for the indoor track. And so if you walk into the facility, you'll see Kindred's name in as well. Commonwealth Credit Union, another good partner of ours, bought the naming rights for the ticketing. And if you could see through this glass here, you would see that they have the entire wall there named. I have to tell you, the water company did a phenomenal job at the art that they put into the facility. There are several water fountains throughout. They sponsored all of those. They wrapped them in ways that, again, respected and honored the community that this facility is built in. You see here that GE donated our all of the, you know, the ovens and whatever we have, microwaves, refrigerators, and those kinds of things. LG&E has powered the concessions. So I definitely want to thank so much the partners that have already stepped up. But I want to say to Rotary, to the extent that you have help or you have any ability to help us with the sponsorships for this facility, this is really a game changer. To be able to drive down 30th Street and see Notre Dame runners just running in our city, to see all of these folks from out of state coming in. As I said, Randall Cunningham, when they came in, they spent a week, him and the team spent a week in hotels. So we're talking about real economic impact in a part of the city that a whole lot of people had given up on. And we know, and I certainly understand, that redlining has impacted the West End in ways that most people just don't talk about and can't imagine. And I think there is a responsibility for all of us to do what we can, where we can, to help change outcomes in this part of the community, and to do it in a way that is respectful and allows the people who have been there for so long, who've had their backs broken by bad policy, to benefit from the things that are coming. So my deepest desire is that people would not be pushed out, that we would instead find ways to prevent price gouging on rents as things move forward, that we would be able to build real pathways to affordable housing with Black ownership on the other end of that. I think that is really the responsible response to redlining and injustice in our community and in our country. And so this is a small thing. I mean, it certainly feels like a big thing to me, but I understand in the grand scheme of things, it is just one thing that needs to be done. And as much as we all know our community and our country has certainly had division and is divided, we have to celebrate the idea that it took Black people and white people, rich and poor, to really be able to step up and make this happen. And I want you to understand that. And so, you know, I always try to find the good. Some people get very frustrated with that. I definitely bring my share of fire, for sure. But there are moments when you really do have to celebrate. And for me, this is one of those. I could not have done this without an entire community supporting me and standing behind me. And that, you know, some of the people who just stepped up, like the Jim Host of the world, the Val Jones, Carla Deerings. But then the woman who lived in the West End, who was in the hospital and gave $5, you know, those things, all of it matters. Everything matters. And so I want you to keep this project in your heads and in your hearts, and also really responsible redevelopment of the West End of Louisville. It can happen, but it needs to happen in a way that benefits the people who are there. That is what justice looks like in this city. That is what justice should look like all over this country. And I'll see if we have other, these are just, again, other opportunities for sponsorship. We did something. This is probably why the project went a little bit over budget. I wanted to build a bowling alley. We built a 4-lane bowling alley. It's a miniature bowling alley. You don't have to change your shoes or anything to go in there. We built an interactive rock climbing wall. So when you go into the facility, you see that. There absolutely are so many opportunities for non-sports events. So yes, you can have a Rotary luncheon here. You could have a wedding here. There's a beautiful mezzanine. There are all kinds of opportunities here. In fact, you should know that the Urban League has, generally, we have a big to-do around Derby, and we usually rent a hotel. We spend thousands of dollars on everything there, and now we can actually have this event in our own facility if we so choose. So, and then lots of great seating, just a lot of fun stuff here. One thing here's the rock climbing wall, and this is our educational area, and I'm looking for someone to sponsor this entire space for us. And so this is, it's not a rock climbing like you go high. Instead, it's interactive and you're trying to move back and forth. So it's really a nice, you can compete with someone else on there. And then here is the miniature bowling alley. Again, you see the walls are white, looking for significant corporate sponsorship here. If we could get it, that would really help us with the. And then here is a shot of the mezzanine that overlooks the track. And this actually will hold about 500 people. So lots of opportunities for all kinds of good stuff. Thanks for the great question, Riggs. I'm reading the chat. If you all have questions, I'm doing that. These are actually the warm-up lanes. This is underneath the mezzanine. So what I found is I traveled throughout the country to look at other facilities. And I want to thank the Community Foundation for being the first organization to give me the funds to go be able to see a facility for myself. And in Birmingham, they had these warm-up lanes. And so we have the warm-up lanes too, but the way we built ours, we can pull the walls down and create some additional space for meetings or community groups, whatever we have to do. As it relates to access for the general public, you'll see right now, Angela, that already we have community members who are outside walking the track a lot in the evenings. The outdoor track is kind of done, but you wouldn't want to run a track meet on it yet because it's actually, we haven't put down the material that is, you know, good for your knees and stuff. So I wouldn't want the kids running on it yet, but we'll get that stuff done. It'll be done by May and we'll be ready to roll there. But in the meantime, it's great for people to just walk, right? And so we've seen a good number of seniors that are coming out and walking on that outdoor track. Also kind of people, there's a pedestrian concourse. We've also have not opened our concessions yet. So in the meantime, we have been able to use food trucks. And so all of a sudden we have food trucks parked in the West End, able to generate significant revenue from the events that we've been able to host, because we've probably already hosted a dozen or more, probably more than a dozen events since we opened the facility. And so that's been really good. And then there's a little bit of construction still going on. So the inside, we haven't quite opened fully. We're still developing how are we going to interact with community in this space, but we're about to host some community events. And we're just trying to work through construction timelines and all of that, because Thornton's is just finishing their construction in the next day or two. So once they get that done, then it'll change things for us. But this facility is for community. And one thing I do want to say, we have a significant number of community members who are walking to work when we have events. They're coming in, they're serving as ushers or whatever. This is not going to create a bunch of full-time positions. If you think about the Yum Center, right, there are probably only about 12 people who actually work there full-time. And so we have a gentleman who was born and raised in the West End, who has spent his life opening facilities. I think he even opened the Derby Museum. He's actually now our facility manager. And the other thing that I'm very proud of, this project will have and has the highest Black spend of any project in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So we were really intentional around saying we are going to show people that there is Black talent in this state, in this country. And we do know how to build and maintain a state-of-the-art facility. That was very important for me. And I'm really proud of that. And also in some cases, the Urban League was actually able to train a person in our construction program. And then that person, that man, that woman was hired by the construction company and able to work at the facility. And I'm telling you, the people who were trained by the league, if they thought they saw something wrong, they were calling me, Miss Siddiqua, there's something, I mean, it was interesting, the level of ownership. So all the way around, it's just been a really great experience. Here you see one of the track meets. This is, I think, Notre Dame, Bellarmine, U of L, and I don't know what this picture's from. There've been a lot of events. And then here, so this is U of L, Bellarmine, Western Kentucky University, and Notre Dame had track meet. I think this is from those. U of L is also renting the space for practice. I don't know if most of you know, they do not have an indoor facility. And so that's good for them. These are just some of the folks who work there, and then some of the folks who were there for a track meet for one of their kids. Here we had either USA Track and Field or the Sports Commission hosted an event. It was one of those where you didn't necessarily have to be connected to a team. And so we've got the girls lined up getting ready to run the 100, and then a family who had a couple of kids participating. I think I took these pictures with my phone. And then again, one of the food trucks that we have been able to use at the facility. Somebody is asking me if we've had any negative feedback. Of course, I tell me what you've ever done in your life that you didn't have negative feedback on. I think, you know, Dr. King was assassinated, so everybody can't be happy. They're not going to be, and I'm not. And I say that sincerely. Like, I can't make everybody happy, and you can't either. But we have had a significant amount of very positive feedback. But there are people who are rightfully concerned about whether or not they're going to be pushed out of their community as they see things improving, because historically that is what happens in this country and in this community. There's just no way around that. So I can't convince people that they're going to be okay. Only we can, together, working together, to ensure that we create legislation that does not allow for rent gouging, and that we have a pathway to ownership for people who would like to own homes in the West End, people who have been negatively impacted by redlining. So I think there has to be fear. There is just no way around that. As it relates to hotels and restaurants, I'm reading through your questions. We were very close to cutting a deal for a hotel, and then the pandemic hit. Because I told you we have 24 acres, we've still got about 7 acres available to be developed on our lot, and we will develop it. I imagine that'll happen in the next 12 to 24 months, just depending on the economy. So this is an exciting time. That is something that's going to happen. Let's see here. And of course, we're already impacting the hotel industry and the restaurant industry, and that's why we're going to see more development in the West End. And that's why everywhere I go, it's so important for me to say we have to have responsible development with a commitment to ensure that the people who have sacrificed so much to continue to live in the West End are not thrown away and not devalued and not pushed out. Who exactly from the local area will be able to use this facility? I would say any track team, certainly anybody who wants to rent the facility, but we'll also have some sliding scale things so that everybody in community, like nonprofit organizations, will be able to access it as well. And we've seen that already happening. In fact, I don't even want to get into some of the calls that we've had for use, but we're doing that. Let's see, what are the plans for other development, hotels, restaurants? I think I just spoke to that. Great work, amazing work. Thank you, Abby. How can we be a part of that work? Well, I again, I think for us, it's really important that in order we understand the model here, and there are sponsorships that your corporation can offer. I mean, that's what we need right now to be able to make sure that this is financially sustainable. It was my goal to build something that could sustain itself, and we can, because there will be revenue generated from the rental of the facilities, whether it's the Sports Commission event, USA Track and Field, the University of Louisville renting the facility 3 days a week, JCPS using the facility because they have no indoor track, Spalding, who else has contacted us? St. Francis, so many different institutions. So that part will take care of itself, but we need the sponsorships in order to take care of the debt that we've created. I hope that helps. And the other thing that's important for people to know is to continue to support the league as well. During the pandemic, the Urban League did not close its doors. We certainly did reduce the number of staff we had in the building. But in the beginning, when we were still doing our training, we actually, and I saw my team do it, met our clients in the parking lot to be able to take their test, because we have a nationally certified test and you have all these constraints. You have to give it when you have to give it, and it has to last for this long. And we wanted to make sure people hadn't spent 6 weeks in a class and then didn't get their certification. So we met them in the parking lot. Some folks sat on the ground, some folks sat in their cars, but we did what we had to do. And we have seen our community stepping up and doing what it needs to be done in order to make it happen. And so I'll say to you all, in whatever space you're in, please do work to make a difference and to recognize and understand the policies that have created the situations that a lot of people are in. This is not really about how smart, how strong some of us are and the rest are not. And in fact, it really is about policy in our country. And so while I am very, very proud of this project, the idea that we have not had an economic development tool down in the West End for all of these years, that most of you all would never live across the street from 24 acres of contaminated land. You just wouldn't, and you wouldn't be asked to, and your kids wouldn't be asked to. So now we've got to make sure that this works for community. And again, as a state-of-the-art sports and learning complex that will attract people from all over this country to compete. And already we've seen records be set there. And so, yes, I do think this would be an amazing location for the first post-pandemic Rotary meeting. I agree completely. Oh, Jean, someone asked me a great question. Can I answer? I don't know what kind of time I have, so I want to be.
Go ahead. Yes, yes, please.
Okay.
You have time.
Somebody will stop me when it's okay. How does one invest in a community and housing without the cost going up? I don't think you can. I think that what ends up happening is the property values are going to increase. What we have to do is a few things. First, we've got to make sure that people who own are grandfathered in, who live there and own are grandfathered in, and so that they don't have to pay the higher tax for a significant period of time. But the other part of that is you have to recognize that because of discrimination and racism and bias, you're not going to have, most of people in the West End do not own their homes. So you've got to think about rentals and how that rate going up is going to impact the cost of housing rent. And so you have to be prepared to have some kind of legislation that will prohibit price gouging. I don't want to say rent control because I know people hate that, but you have to protect people. I mean, we have 6,000 homeless children in JCPS prior to the pandemic. What in the world are we doing if we create more homelessness in our community? That makes no sense. So we just got to be committed to doing several things at one time. And we can do them if we care enough and if we're intentional about it. I think you have to have a pathway to Black ownership. I think it is irresponsible for government or philanthropy to give money for development that does not respond to redlining. Honestly respond to redlining in communities that we know have been impacted by it. I think it is terrible that every real estate agent in this country does not understand what redlining is and what the impact of it was. So there are ways to do this. You know, there are pools of money that could be created to help with, you know, funding, because people do want their property values to go up. You know, Black people do deserve to be able to sell and make a profit like anybody else across the country. But you have to know that just saying we're going to grandfather people in on the you know, as it relates to property values and taxes is not going to be enough in a community where most people are not owners. So it's going to take a multitude of things. And then someone asked me about the TIF. One more, how do you think the West Louisville TIF pass will work? I think the TIF could be a good tool, but not alone. Alone, it could be very dangerous for people who live there now, who want to be able to stay. And let's understand something, okay? Black people in Louisville make less than their white counterparts across every industry, in every sector. So you do not have to wonder why people can't afford to pay a higher rate for their properties. We've got so much injustice in our community. And I mean, you know, it is what it is. So anything that we do, we have to think about what are the intended consequences and what are the unintended consequences. I mean, even for us in building this facility, we tried so hard to go door to door telling people, listen, there will be people who come to you who want to buy your property now. And they're going to tell you, you can live here for the rest of your life and then we'll just take it when you leave. Well, that's not wealth building. That's no opportunity to build wealth and die and pass it down. But imagine what you're saying to someone who in that moment may be desperate. Mm-hmm. So you all are at the policy tables. You're in control of some of this. And I am pleading with you, to the extent that you have the power to do something different. We don't have to do what Nashville has done. I like Nashville, it's a great city, but they have gentrified, they have pushed people out. We don't have to be that. We can be more intentional and more responsible. We've just got to decide to. And I heard you all wrote this down. You said, will it, you were asking, you know, is it the truth? Will it build goodwill and build friendships? Well, it might not build friendships in the beginning, but it's an ultimate goal, right? Will it take care of people? And is it the truth? Are you really dealing with the truth in the way that you are responding to poverty and racism in this community? Are you prepared to sit still with the discomfort of the history of who we are and what we have been through and why? And are you willing to do something different because of that? Remembering African-American history cannot be more painful for you than it is for me. And since I don't get to walk away from that, you can't either. So I am begging this city and our leaders to do better than other places. Don't just compare we have got to do better. We have got to take care of people who deserve it. So check out, you know, I know you all have done presentations on Redline and I'm getting into all of that. So I think I've gone through amazing problem. Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, Siddiqua, this is Devon. I've got a question.
Hi, Devon. Okay.
Hey, well, first off, let me say this. I have been a longtime personal and professional advocate for West Louisville and have watched good intentions come and go. And I can tell you what you have accomplished is nothing short of a miracle. It is absolutely phenomenal, not just what you've done, but at the level that you have done it. It is to be celebrated and acknowledged as one of the great achievements in our city. With that though, Siddiqua, I do want to ask the question. You talk a lot about the engagement that you had here locally. Can you talk about, I know personally I've watched you even travel the country talking about this project. Can you talk about the response you got from institutions, organizations, and people beyond the city of Louisville and the state of Kentucky?
Yeah, I can. Thank you for the question. It's a little bit, it's interesting as you go outside of Louisville to attempt to fundraise, they always want to know what your foundations or what the people there, what are the corporations doing in your city. And I'll tell you, that makes it very difficult. If your own people don't believe in the project, if the people here won't invest, it makes it a little bit more challenging outside. And the overwhelming majority of the funds that we were able to lock in were local. We had some folks like in New York and other places who had Louisville ties, but were seriously, you know, New Yorkers now, but willing to invest in this project. We also at one point, and it fell through, to be quite frank with you, our Opportunity Zone investor was out of Chicago. And we expected to have a opportunity zone. Like, we were excited about trying to make, you know, the former administration's opportunity zones work, because you know, from my perspective, listen, whatever it takes to get this stuff done, to help change our community. And at the last minute, our opportunity zone investor, not at the last minute, but they did not invest because of a couple of things. One, they were out of Chicago. And if you're comparing Chicago and Louisville, and you think about the resources, and then the other part of that for them was around the pandemic and all of the recovery that needed to happen. So that's why we ended up with the $10 million loan, because we didn't have the 10 million OZ investment. And that would have been 10 million with a 0 interest payback. So just 10 million payback in 10 years. There were a couple of outside foundations, and even since this project, because of the Path Forward work, we have been able, this project kind of raised our profile. And so when we put together the Path Forward, and we did that because, and I think I told you all this before, you know, when you're out there protesting, people say, well, what do you all want? You know, and I get so sick of that, right? Because we, jobs, justice, education, health, housing, everything you want, what you want for your kids, that's what we want. So we wrote it down in the Path Forward. We had a bunch of organizations that came together to do this. And we've gained another example of national attention being paid. And we were able to raise millions of dollars actually from outside of Kentucky to bring into Louisville. And we're focusing those dollars on affordable rentals, affordable housing, and Black businesses, because I think the number is right here. Devon, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Less than 1% of our businesses are owned by Blacks in Louisville. So we're focusing in there, building a back room, sort of all of that legal stuff. And this is another way that you all might be able to help if you want to volunteer some time, if you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, if you're a marketing expert, whatever. We're trying to build, we want to sort of model it after our Riley reentry program. You know, we have the largest expungement clinic ever in the Urban League, runs it through the Riley Reentry Project. And so there we have about 80 lawyers who volunteer, because I'm able to lean on my old judge friends, and Shake helps me recruit and all that stuff. And so we get all those folks in there and get people's records expunged so that they can go on with their lives. And so now we're trying to do that for businesses and plug and play where people need it. So
Sadiqa,
yeah.
I got to ask you, in bringing your project in the West End into the rest of the city and celebrations, et cetera, we have Derby coming up. And, you know, one of the features is the Triple Crown of running, right? All those races, et cetera. How are you going to integrate the two?
What? The Triple Crown? No, you mean the Derby and the Sports and Learning Center?
Yeah, and the racing and running and all that. How it can
I can't. To be honest, to be very honest with you all, we really need to have a communication with the executives at Churchill Downs. Our last communication with them was not very positive, and it is making it very difficult to integrate anything, quite frankly. And so what I hope is that something that brings so much economic opportunity to our community could be seen as something that is valued by the entire community, but that is going to take some conversation and some real work. And I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to make strides there. I think this past year has been emotionally draining. Many of us have felt just really, just abused. I mean, I don't have a better word, and I'm speaking for myself. And I always like to put myself in context. I mean, you heard my bio. I think I have a pretty good life, a pretty privileged life. And if someone like me felt the need to actually physically protest in the street, there is something really wrong. And so what I hope long-term is that we will be able to integrate the Derby activities into this wonderful space, but that will only happen if we're able to really integrate the Derby into our entire community. And so we'll work on that when they are ready. We certainly stand ready. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions, Rotarian? This is great. We can do as we have done before. Just say your name and ask a question. Where are you?
Jean, this is Leah Brown.
Go ahead, Leah.
I just wanted, I'm not sure if everybody on the call is familiar or aware, but Churchill Downs is hiring right now for a VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And so that word needs to go out, that this is the opportunity to get the foot in the door and start those conversations.
Yeah.
Dean, this is Barbara Sexton Smith. I have a question.
Go on, Barb.
Siddiqua, thank you so much for being here and being true to yourself, of speaking truth to all of us. My question is around the last question about integrating the new facility with the Derby. So I want to draw a distinction between Churchill Downs, its properties and events, and the Kentucky Derby Festival, because we all know those are completely separate entities. So back to Jean's question, with the Triple Crown, when she said that, I thought she was talking about the foot races that take place. And there are 3 internationally renowned foot races.
Yeah,
that take place in our community. Just so happens it's that time of year. So Siddiqua, I'm going to reframe the question. Have you thought at all or had any conversation with folks about the 3 significant foot races that travel throughout our community each year in the spring, and how your facility might benefit in integrating that? Thank you.
Oh, great save, Barbara. Yes, the Commonwealth Credit Union folks called and talked to us a little bit about that. And I think they may be working with ASM. For those who don't know, ASM is the largest sports facility management company in the world. They actually are managing the Yum Center, the soccer stadium, and also our stadium. So I'm hopeful that they are in communications with KDF. But if they aren't, I expect that you all will make sure we make that connection before this day ends.
You know, the best way for us to do that, Siddiqua, is for you to join.
You always say that.
It is time. Any other questions, Rotarians?
Same thought as Barbara. Derby Festival, yeah. This is wonderful.
Sadiqa,
Yes.
it's Riggs.
Hi, Riggs.
Hey, how are you? Listen, first of all, thank you for your partnership with Norton for COVID testing. For those who don't know, she challenged us to do the largest drive-through testing for COVID vaccines on the early days, and she did 2,000 of her members and the community. My question to you is, what is the health mission of that community? And I know the Urban League is central to that. What do you want to share with this group about the health challenges going forward, because it's one of your pillars?
Sure, absolutely. I think that, people understand why we say jobs, justice, education, health, and housing. It's really about a quality of life, right? And so to the extent that we still live in a country where you can predict life expectancy by zip code, we have things that need to be improved. Some of that has to do with access. And so I'm thankful for the partnership with Norton, and thankful, that we were able to partner on the COVID testing, particularly at a time when our community was very hesitant to get tested. I think that hesitancy has passed. People are now getting vaccinated. We see that happening. We see the numbers going up, but we still see challenges with access. So I think that's important for us as we move forward to continue to address those things. And I think Norton opening at 18th Street, being there at the Y has been amazing, but also really coming to the league. And we didn't just do drive ups, we also had walk ups. And I think that's important too, that as you, do things in community, that you make sure you're clear about the community that you're in. And so we need to think about everything that we do, where we do it, how we deliver it, and the care with which it is given. And generally, you just want to give people the same care that you would give anybody that you love. Obviously, there are significant issues around food deserts in the West End and again, across this country. We've got to be more intentional about addressing those kinds of things. So all of these things that lead to poor health outcomes, including just poverty. I mean, it is just very hard to be healthy and poor. I mean, that just psychologically, there is so much that goes along with the burden. And I will tell you all a story. At the top of the pandemic, I think everybody was sort of trying to figure out what job do we give people as we're trying to, keep people safe, but you also, want people working. And so there was a day, I think the city decided that they were going to do street cleaning, and it made sense because, why not clean the streets? Nobody was out, nobody was moving, but these cars were towed. And it is just imagine that you have counted every penny of your paycheck and you know exactly where it needs to go, and your car gets towed and it's $140 and it's $20 a day for every day you leave it there. That kind of little thing to you, Luke, or to me, or to Riggs may not be anything, but to someone who is just at the brink, it's a big deal. And those are the kinds of things that we have to think about as we make decisions in community, as we make decisions about how we move our businesses forward. There's not really any move you can make that you shouldn't be intentional about ensuring equity and justice. I'm reading the questions as I talk. I'm sorry. This facility is good news and demonstrates momentum. Wondering if NBC might be interested in doing a package. I hope they would. Please, somebody help me get to them. I'd love that. It would help us with some, what I went to Nike. I traveled to Portland, Oregon to go to Nike. And I want to tell you sort of a jealousy story. There, Phil Knight, who obviously Phil Knight of Nike, he spent, I don't know, like $500 million building a facility in Portland. So my timing was bad. They were not interested in investing in Louisville. Plus they were like, well, you all are in Adidas town. I never could get a meeting with Adidas, but I did get in with Nike, spent a whole day there. I learned a lot, but didn't get any funding from them. But it's always funny because I look at, there was an international magazine released list of facilities to watch, and there were 3 of them. Our facility was number 2. Phil Knight's facility, number 1, $500 million facility, it should be number 1. And then another one, I think it was in Japan or somewhere else, I can't remember. So I was pretty excited about even making that list. So.
Hey, Siddiqua, this is Luke Schmidt, and I'm the one that put that post in there about NBC. And I really think you've got a facility that is worth promoting nationally. And I'm just thinking that NBC, as they prepare for their coverage of the Derby, that's something that they can come back and say, look what's happened in Louisville since we were here last, and juxtapose it against, a lot of the bad news from last year. This is a real positive. And Jean, messaging and outreach through the Community Impact Committee, I'm wondering if this is something maybe we could take a quick look at.
Absolutely. I think the general manager is on our committee. Mr. Salvaggi, are you there?
I didn't want to mention him by name.
We can certainly talk about that. And Siddiqua, we also would love, thank you, Luke, for that. We'd also love to visit your facility. So we'll chat with our executive director about having an event there or something. We would love to do that. Thank you so much, Siddiqua. We're your fans. We love having you. We'd love to have you become a member. I'm going to twist your arm even more. All right, Rotarians, join us next week. Our pre-meeting will be hosted by fellow Rotarians Kevin Wardell and Harold Butler, discussing Leadership Louisville Encore program. Guest speaker again, Scotty Davenport, coach of the Bellarmine's men's basketball team. And then register for the April 13th virtual business synergy event. And please stay, those of you interested, for a brief What is Rotary session. Thank you. Be well, everyone. We are adjourned.